by upgrading their centrifuges, and by limiting our inspection rights and basically ignoring evidence that Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu pointed out earlier, last week I think it was. We basically turned a blind eye to this deal, but more importantly, we legitimized an illegitimate government. Remember what Alireza said. This is a government where Iran's own generals admit they control maybe 4% of the population. There is a vast majority within Iran thirsting and aching for the end to this regime. We're not just talking about a small population. By granting this deal and in effect legitimizing this regime, we were able to really strike a blow for freedom. In a negative way, though. It wasn't a blow for freedom for the Iranian people. It was actually stifling their freedom by legitimizing the regime and by giving them money. Money that they desperately needed to keep funding. The pressure was on. Sanctions were there. They were feeling the effects. By effectively opening this up, the West gave into their own greedy influences in seeing, especially Europe, in seeing a fresh marketplace, an opportunity to sell and make money for their own nations. And let's be honest, that was really what this deal was. This was an opportunity more for Europe than it was for America to open up a burgeoning market. And by turning a blind eye to certain practices, more executions per capita than anywhere else, destabilizing influence in the region. Look at Syria, look at Yemen. But as long as they're making money, everything's okay. Europe is not going to really care. It's not like it's going to bother them anyway. And by giving them that money, they basically got bailed out. The Trump foreign policy seems to be keep the pressure on till they squeal. And if he was in charge during the negotiations of this Iran deal, I think it would have gone down a lot differently. It probably wouldn't have been done at all. And the reason why I say that is because I look to what he does in North Korea. And the pressure that he put on not only on North Korea, but North Korea's primary partners, including China, in putting pressure on them to effectuate change by putting the squeeze on them as well, economically and otherwise. That's what should have happened with Iran. The pressure should have been kept on until you got more and more concessions out of them, like access to those military facilities that are currently off limits. That's what should have been done. Like access to all the information that the Israelis found that they still had regarding, the weaponizing of nuclear material. That's where the pressure should have remained if you were really trying to strike a deal. And President Trump recognizes that. He also recognizes that there's still going to be an opportunity to deal later on. Because if you notice when he talks about putting sanctions on, he leaves it open-ended and does so for a reason. The return of sanctions isn't going to mean we're going straight and turning it up to 11 like last time. There's going to be a rollout that's going to be different than just putting things back in place and opening up the spigot to maximum and going forward. There'll be probably different levels and a scale based upon what concessions you can get out of Iran for coming back into the deal. Because don't make any mistake. Iran is going to want to remain legitimized, quote unquote. And while I don't think that terrorism is going to be their objective in trying to further destabilize the region or harm American interests abroad, I think they're a lot more scared than we are at this point. In negotiating, there's this idea of fear of loss, right? The idea that we don't want to do something because it's going to come back around to us and it's going to hurt us somehow. So we're not going to take a step because we don't want to lose a step. America's been operating from a fear of loss point of view in the Obama administration. And that point of view was trying to spill over when talking about North Korea. But President Trump doesn't operate from fear of loss. He operates from a very, risk-favorable position. He's not risk-adverse at all. We saw that with North Korea, that when he put the hammer down on them and on China, it yielded results. I think he's banking on the same thing happening with Iran. But the problem is there's so much interference right now in this deal. There's so many voices with so many differing interests that will result in different ramifications. A lot of moving parts here. Internationally, of course, France, Germany, European partners who want to see this deal flourish and for their own, selfish economic reasons. But then also you have forces undermining the president currently. John Kerry is working in a shadow government capacity, if you believe news reports right now, saying that the deal should be saved. President Obama is going on social media talking about how this is a mistake getting out of the deal. There's a lot of local as in, national forces going on and, international pressure as well as a result of all the, divergent and converging interests going on depending on what you're talking about. It's a very tricky playing field right now. But I think that President Trump has earned the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to say it. His international policy, his foreign policy, has been nothing short of brilliant in dealing with regional threats and nuclear threats. So I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt right now and see where this goes. I want to see the art of the deal work one more time. I'm not sick of winning internationally. I want to see that happen. So for now, it has, President Trump has my approval. And I'm interested to see where we go from here. And where we go, folks, from here, when we come back, is we're going to take the focus off internationally, we're going to bring it back home a little bit, we're going to bring it back to the People's Republic of New York, and we're going to talk about the fast-breaking news regarding the resignation of New York's Attorney General Eric Schneiderman, what that means, nationally vis-a-vis President Trump, and what it means for, Democrats, not only in the People's Republic of New York, but also around the country. Strap it in, folks. We're ready for a bumpy ride here. It's going to get a little hot talking about this topic. A whole lot of crazy going on in this one. Gene Baradelli behind enemy lines. We'll be back right after these brief words. If you're a long-time listener of the show, or maybe this is your first time listening, you can probably tell that me and the gang here, we like to have our share of fun, whether it's on or off the air. We talk about 2-drink minimum radio and no medication Wednesdays or whatever day it may be. That's why when we found the people at Less Government, More Fun, we knew it was a match made in heaven with this show. Folks, we live in a time where government is out of hand. Our founding fathers did not intend government to be all-consuming in all parts of our lives. That's why we are telling you to go to lessgovmorefun.com, check out the website, check out the swag. What the people want is less government, more fun. Pass it on, make it happen.
Who might you save?
Your mother, your father, your husband, uncle, aunt, son.
Learn FAST, F-A-S-T, the sudden signs of a stroke, and you could save.
Your friend, teacher, boss.
F, face drooping. A, arm weakness. S, speech difficulty. T, time to call 911. F-A-S-T. That's F, face drooping. A, arm weakness. S, speech difficulty. T, time to call 911. The sooner they get to the hospital, the sooner they'll get treatment. And that can make a remarkable difference in the recovery of
your neighbor, the waiter, grandmother, grandfather.
So learn FAST, the sudden signs of a stroke, then pass it on, because you never know who might save you.
Your wife, your colleague.
Spot a stroke fast. Visit strokeassociation.org, brought to you by the American Stroke Association and the Ad Council.
Behind Enemy Lines Radio is all about being right. No, seriously, it is. If you ever listen to Russ Gallo or me go back and forth on some issue, we always want to make sure that we remember who said what and when we said it. That's why we go to goonrecord.com. It's a brand new social media website. Challenge people on what they believe, whether it's in politics, sports, entertainment, finance, whatever. There's a category for you at goonrecord.com. Check it out right now. Tell us, what do you stand for? It's time for you to go on record. Behind Enemy Lines. Back on the air. Gene Baradelli, back behind Enemy Lines. I want to thank everybody for tuning into the show. We're just about at halftime here. So you know what that means. Time for all the plugs here on the show. Thanks for listening to the show. I'm Gene Baradelli. Russ Gallo will be back next week. This is Behind Enemy Lines Radio. Check us out at www.behindenemylinesradio.us. Also check us out on the Facebooks and the Twitters at BEL_radio. And if you missed any part of the show, which we normally do live, but haven't done in quite a bit, you can always check us out at one of our rebroadcast outlets, including WJHC 107.5 FM in beautiful Jasper, Florida. WDDQ 92.1 FM in equally beautiful Adele, Georgia. WLBB News Talk 1330 AM in just as beautiful Carrollton, Georgia. All a part of the Talk America Radio Network, powered by the great Ron Phillips and ICRN, the Internet's conservative radio network. You can also check us out at KLRN Radio, Lone Star Talk Radio and Sackheads Media, Lanterns Radio, check them out at lanterns.buzz, and Eye to Eye Talk Radio. But if you miss any of those rebroadcasts, it's cool, don't worry about it. There's tons of ways to catch up as well. You can always check us out as a podcast. We're on just about everywhere, including iTunes, Spreaker, Stitcher, Podbay, Player FM, TuneIn. You can discover us on Google Play Music. You can also find us on Auto Radio, which is a project of SiriusXM, and SoundCloud. And of course, you can always tune in on the mighty iHeartRadio network. Got a lot still left to talk about here, folks. And we're going to bring it back local. We're talking about the Iran deal before. A lot of good information there, a lot of heavy, wonky stuff there. But let's get down in the mud. Let's get salacious. Let's talk about the news breaking out of the People's Republic of New York involving our illustrious and esteemed, well, not so much anymore, Attorney General Eric Schneiderman. News breaking earlier this week that Eric Schneiderman, who is a champion of women's rights and a darling of the Me Too movement, and a darling of Full Frontal Comedy with Samantha Bee, and, just a hero of the left for taking on Donald Trump. Well, folks, not so much. Eric Schneiderman resigns this week after a story breaks in The New Yorker, written in part by Ronan Farrow, talking about his own relationships where Me Too does not extend into the Schneiderman household. Oh, no. Apparently, many of his former romantic partners have come out to say not only is he kind of a freak, but also that he is violent, out of control, and dangerous. Reports of not only assaulting women and hitting them and degrading them, but choking them to the point of, being attacked, physically and, degrading them. There was one woman of color who claims that Schneiderman demanded that she call him master, and she was his, quote, brown slave. Really salacious stuff, folks. And this is a guy that was touted at the March for Women in New York City and other places, and it was making a name for himself as being, the head of the resistance on the legal front for many of President Trump's initiatives. This is a guy that was front and center for all that. Sound a little familiar? It sounds an awful lot like a second coming of a little guy that we know here from our Buffoon of the Year contest named Carlos Danger. It sounds just like Anthony Weiner, doesn't it? Sounds just like that effing steamroller Elliot Spitzer, doesn't it? There's a problem in New York progressive politics, I guess, with youngish, males who are just overly aggressive and, deviant tendencies.